the live chat comments, some lovely comments already in the live chat over to none other than Mr. Sam Yuko, Mr. Hornet Shane. Now, Sam was there yesterday at Goodison Park. Sam, just describe the experience of yesterday.
I'll tell you what, I woke up this morning with 2 extremely sore knees and a massive hangover. It was all worth it for the Alls. But do you know what? It was probably the best away game I've ever done. I think it was just, it was good being with all my mates beforehand as well. It was a really good day out, cracking ground to go to. Really, really old-fashioned ground as well. Obviously, the start wasn't ideal. We all kind of just sat there like, here we go again. But then, do you know what? I mean, I might as well say this now because I just had it off air just now. But as soon as we equalised, there was very much that feeling that we had at Wolves against Wolves in the semi-final at Wembley, that there was only going to be one team to win it. And I did not expect to see 3-4 goals in the last 10, 15 minutes. But oh my word, it was unbelievable. And I feel sorry for Watford fans who didn't make the trip yesterday, both of you included in that. I'm rubbing it in there.
You know what? I love the match of the day at the end when Ranieri and all the players obviously going past the away end and he was pointing at King. He was saying, this is the guy you've got to be screaming at and supporting. Shano, how did you watch the game yesterday? Was it a stream? Was it at the pub?
No, it was not a stream. To me, he cuts out. No, listen, I wasn't watching a stream yesterday. I saw the teams kind of come in. I was out for most of the first half. I saw we were 1-0 down. I thought, oh, God, here we go again. I did actually say the lineup didn't really inspire very much confidence in me. I just thought there were certain players in there I didn't want to play, and we'll go on to that, I'm sure. And it really makes a difference that much now, really, I guess. But kind of went out first half. Second half, I was back in time for the second half, and I watched it. Anyone who's a regular of the Sunday Night with Shane will know I'm a massive fan of Final Score. Watching it on there, keeping up with everything else that was going on. Really interesting, actually. Final Score yesterday had a James McFadden and Jermaine Beckford on, 2 former Everton players. When asked in the build-up to the game by host Jason Mohammed, what do you think of this game today? Everton, Watford. Both said easy Everton win, and I go as far as to say Jermaine Beckford said, I don't see Watford posing them any sort of problems. And by the time we got to the end of the game, like they were both sitting there quite silently, completely they were shocked. I saw the end of the game. I think the end of the program, they had an interview, the match of the day commentator Guy Mowbray. He was stunned by it all as well. Like, here's his reaction. I think it's even on Twitter as well. It's just madness. Like, he even said, I think, 2-1 down. No one on the press gantry saw Watford coming back into that game. Not by the margin of goals that they did. They might have got a goal to equalise or something like that and ended the game on a high. But to go on, to win it by a 3-goal margin from where we were in 68, 69 minutes. It's ludicrous. Honestly, absolutely ludicrous. First on match of the day. Not much more you can ask. First win under Ranieri. It's all dilly-ding, dilly-dong, isn't it? With Italian flags and love hearts and everything. It's brilliant. Absolutely superb.
Sam, look, I think the best place to start is Josh King yesterday, obviously picking up a hat-trick.
Yeah.
Led the line incredibly well through the middle in that 4-3-3 system. What particularly impressed you with his performance? Because I think a lot of comments I've seen from Watford fans is this is the number 9 we've been crying out for the past 5 years, particularly when we were in the Premier League. So what aspects of his game that he brought to the table yesterday really impressed you? Apart from the hat-trick.
Yeah, so do you know what? Ignoring the goals for a minute, because I only really appreciated this when watching Match of the Day back and watching some extended highlights back. It was his all-round game, because I think it would often be, scoring a hat-trick is unbelievable in itself, but you would forget sort of other elements to his game that were so good. But there was a point where it might have been Cathcart who hoofed it long, and King was able to take it down on his chest, turn and released, I think it was Cucho off the left who cut inside and hit it just wide. And it was just his all-round gameplay, something that we've been crying out for so long. I said it to someone in the away end yesterday. His performance was almost like, think of 15, 16 Dini and Igalo in one player, and it was like that in terms of the finishing, the hold-up play, his general strength. And I think he sort of had that extra motivation. I think he said he didn't really get a chance last season at Everton, and he woke up feeling he has to do something today. And I hope that that gives them a massive confidence boost to take into the coming weeks, particularly next week without Emmanuel Dennis and with some really difficult games coming up. It's what we've needed for a long time and what we've been crying out for. But I just find it interesting, just on all three of our goal scorers, all three of them were summer signings. And particularly after last week where we went recruitment's this, recruitment's that, I'm just really happy they were all able to prove us wrong. I'm not fully changing my mind yet saying the recruitment wasn't good enough because it's been one game ultimately, and there is still elements to improve in our game, particularly in the back. But it's just good that they were able to prove us wrong yesterday.
Yeah, well said, Sam. Shano, on Josh King, look, I think we've got to dedicate the first part of the show to him. As Massimo says in the comments, it was a complete striker's performance. The way, as Sam said, he brought players into the game. He brought Sarr and Cucho, who I thought had a really good game, and we'll touch on him later on in the show. But Josh King, this is the man we've been crying out for, isn't it, Shano? And the man that we've all said, look, with all respect to Troy and all respect to Andre and players that have been here at the club, it is only one performance, but you felt, I don't know about you, Shano, that the signs were there that the goals were going to come with King because he was getting in the right positions.
A lot of people have said to me in the last few weeks that Josh King just needs a goal, he just needs a goal. Once he gets a goal, it'll all come together for him. Now, I obviously took that with a pinch of salt, given the last time someone said that to me about a player, his name was Andre, and we all know how that ended. So I wasn't really I wasn't really feeling it, to be honest. But there was something that he said in that interview yesterday. I think it's been mentioned by, an Everton fan channel as well. Everton treated him poorly last season. And as he said, I got out of bed this morning and knew that I'd score. I knew that there was just that sort of that untouchable feeling that he had this morning. Exactly that. And he just knew he saw himself scoring. That is the kind of confidence that we need. It's the kind of confidence I think we've lacked since that Premier League season. Dini Igalo, I was very, very confident. All right, maybe a little bit of nerves coming into that first season back in the Prem, but I knew we had the goals in us. I knew if we got Troy and Iggy up there together, scoring goals, linking up, they're going to bamboozle defenders in the Premier League. I've not really felt that this season. Have we finally found the Odion Igalo replacement that we've been waiting for God knows how many years? We've been through so many players since he's kind of gone. Obviously, Troy's been kind of stayed on throughout, but someone to partner up Troy with. Everyone said it could be Andre. A lot of people were excited when Andre came in. It hasn't really worked out. Other players are signed, maybe haven't been as involved. Okaka instantly springs to mind as someone. Could it have gone right for him if this had happened? Another sliding doors player maybe. But I mean, Josh King, that saying, if he gets his first goal, the rest will come. Well, he scored one yesterday and 2-2 came instantly, didn't it? In a game. Obviously unlucky to have that goal ruled out against Newcastle, which was just the biggest anticlimax you can ever imagine for someone who sits in the rookery. But now, ultimately, look, he has got that goal. He's got a hat-trick. His confidence is going to be flowing through his veins. The one thing, obviously, that I want now more than anything else is for him to kick on. I always kind of say it, a striker low on confidence scores a goal. This will now give him the confidence, almost kind of always falls upon deaf ears. I don't think it is this time. I just think there's something a little bit different about him. He looks up for it. He looks motivated. And ultimately, he's got that almost curse off his back now. He's got that first goal. He can go on full of confidence, full of his attacking prowess. I'm honestly delighted for him because it can't have been easy last season at Everton, but he's come back. He's proven his critics wrong. And I bet that felt good, scoring a hat-trick at a side who didn't play him at all for half a season.
Yeah, didn't make one start, didn't he, in 11 appearances. Sam, look, just going back to a point you mentioned about recruitment, and we mentioned this last week in the 5-0 defeat to Liverpool. It is, just to say, it's been 1 week of Ranieri, and we've conceded 5 one week and scored 5 the next week. So look, enjoy the ride, Watford fans. It's going to be interesting. Sam, we mentioned about the recruitment. We mentioned about attacking depth. We've scored 12 goals this season so far. We have conceded 17, but we've scored 12 goals, which is actually quite high, particularly for a promoted team. So are you pleased with the attacking depth we've got in this Watford squad? Because I'm going to be honest, and this is not just reactionary to yesterday. Even when we came into the season, I felt that we've got a lot of depth in this Watford squad. Are you satisfied with what we have, particularly as we'll go on to the changes that Ranieri made yesterday?
I think so. I think all of them still do have, some way of proving to go. I think Dennis is probably the most proven we've had so far. I think he's all right. He's had a couple of meh games, but I think on the whole he's been very good. I think Josh King yesterday pretty much proved himself, but I think Cucho's got still a lot of room to improve as well, even though he did also look bright yesterday. For me, the recruitment was never a problem going forward. It was always just particularly in the middle of the park and at the back. And at the back, there were problems again yesterday. Both goals were really poor defending, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. But I think I was always relatively satisfied going forward. Particularly, João Pedro came on, was different gravy, by the way. The guy is
so good.
The guy is going right to the top. I put a tweet out this morning. I said this last season, I've never been more sure on a Watford player who will sell to Real Madrid, for example, in my life. He just looks, he's got a high ceiling than both Sarr, Richarlison, Decore, all of them. He is going, the boy is brilliant. One of the most talented players I've seen at the football club. And honestly, I think he'll go from strength to strength. He just needs to get starting games now. Perhaps there's still a fitness problem in there, but the fact that he even came on, by the way, they called him a Tinkerman for a reason. I'll let Shane touch on it, but the subs were probably the least that we expected. I thought Ozan Tufan, I didn't think he had the best game, but I didn't think he's probably not someone under taken off. Sarr, I think there were eyebrows raised, particularly going 2-1 down when he came off. But João and Dennis came on and were just different gravy yesterday. It was just so
yeah, I mean, absolutely, mate. Those two changed the game. And Shane, is it fair to say that I don't think any Watford fan, the subs that Ranieri made on the 65th minute, I don't think any Watford fan would have made those changes in terms of taking Sarr off, which is a ballsy move. Talent-wise, he is our best player. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But he felt that a transition into the 4-4-2 and basically match Everton man for man was the way to go. And he got it absolutely bang on. So how much credit do we have to give to Claudio for the way he turned the game around with those two substitutions?
I think it's really interesting because when I first heard that Ranieri was coming to Watford, the rumours all kind of started up. I messaged a Leicester fan who I actually know from actually doing the channel. I think we even had to have the guy on as well.
Yeah,
remain anonymous just in case he doesn't want to be mentioned on
sure.
Stuff. But he's kind of done exactly. No, he's done a few fan cams and so on with us in the past, and I actually reached out to him and I said, look, obviously you probably think the world of Ranieri and everything, but what can you tell me specifically about his tactics and how he kind of operates? And his response was quite interesting because he was he's called the Tinkerman for a reason because he'll see things on the pitch that literally no other fan will see. There were lots of instances, even when Leicester won the title, he took off players. It was deemed unpopular, but he saw something that others didn't see. And the one thing he said was that he'll always, at every single game, whereby things are maybe in the balance, he'll look at the squad and think, who is the one player that can change that? Who can change the result for us? Who's the one player who's going to potentially come out and be our match winner? Yesterday, I think he identified Josh King. And after that, it's about building the team around him, play to his strengths. And if that meant that a good player, your best player, potentially at the club, not specifically in the game, is kind of not a part of that, then he will not be afraid of making that substitute. And Sarr was one of those yesterday. You're absolutely right in one respect. I did not see Sarr. When I saw it, I was like, oh no, it's just. I initially thought it might have been an injury or something because ultimately I wasn't watching the game, so I wasn't obviously aware of what was kind of actually fully going on. But it was a ballsy move, and as Brown Electron says there, it did work, didn't it? Ultimately, it worked. He saw something that no one else saw. Bringing on João Pedro, I thought actually looked really good against Liverpool last week. One of the very few shining lights in utterly dismal performance. But Sarr came off. Almost changed the game. Everything went through King, and I was just about to mention that it does show the value of experience. I'm not going to come out and name former managers and all that because that's very fair. But let's just say, I don't think previous managers would have made that kind of substitution. They would have very much have said, "No, you're still the man. No, you're still the man. No, you're still our best player. You're still going to stay on the pitch, even though it's not the right thing to do." The right thing to do yesterday, even though no one else saw it, to be fair. I sure as hell didn't see it. I'm sure none of the travelling Watford fans, anyone following the game from afar, saw it coming. The value of his experience, knowing what was needed at the exact time. Because ultimately, look, the subs were made. King's goal. I mean, the ball coming into the middle. I don't know who it was. Was it? No, it wasn't. Sorry, it must have been Dennis. I would assume.
Which one is it? This is the fourth
goal. Yeah,
that was Pedro, wasn't it? It was Pedro.
Pedro with the ball in. Yeah. But just the whole counter attack, we blew Everton apart with those substitutes. Ozan Tufan as well coming off as well. I think it was actually Zhao. I think that came on for him. But at the end of the day, look, we can't complain, because if he sees something that we don't, well, that's.
Oh, he's frozen. He's frozen on Ranieri making the change.
Ultimately,
there we go.
He's back.
Listen, we can't complain. It's the reason why we brought him in, right? Because in big games like yesterday, a game at a stadium that we've never actually won at either, he made the decisive changes. We come away with 3 points. Ranieri was pointing at Josh King at the end. Yeah, let's celebrate him. No, let's celebrate you, Claudio, as well. You made those changes. You know, King scored the goals. I get that. Totally see that. Yes, it was me that was tweeting all the crowns on Twitter. I get that. But you deserve some of that credit as well. You changed the game in a way that I don't think other managers would have done. And I think it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, it's a great point about Ranieri, Sam. And just in terms of the past week, so one thing that struck me is his press management. And that was one big thing during the season where Leicester won the league in 15-16, was the way he managed the media. And I thought he absolutely nailed it when he basically said, look, Atletico Madrid conceded 3 goals to Liverpool in the Champions League. We conceded 5, and Atletico Madrid are one of the best defences in the league. So, and you saw it today, Manchester United conceding 5 goals to Liverpool at home. So I think the fact that he's giving not only Watford players but Watford fans hope is a massive boost for us. But just being at Goodison Park yesterday, did you notice anything about Ranieri, particularly with the substitution? Did you see that substitution coming at all? Did you feel that was the right change at the time, or are you very much thinking, "Wow, Claudio, you've nailed it there, mate"?
I think there were quite a few moments yesterday where we were sat there just thinking, "Do you know what's he doing here?" And I think the first time was when we saw the lineup. I think other parts were when I think he took off Ngaki and moved Cathcart to right back and put Nkulu on, who, by the way, I know it was only 10 minutes and Everton didn't really move forward, but he looked pretty solid as well. Wouldn't shock me if he comes in when he's fully fit as well. And obviously that substitution. But I think that we've had managers in the past who wouldn't have made those ballsy decisions and shown sort of the cojones to do what he did yesterday. I think a prime example of that is Cisco Munoz. I think we would have seen that with Claudio Ranieri. I think we saw certain managers who were sort of reluctant not to play Deeney because of sort of the implications, perhaps the backlash of it. And I think that the fact that he was able to take off Sark and we were able to go on and win the game, I think really shows that the players have bought into what he's doing already. And that's arguably quite surprising considering, all right, he was there for 3 or 4 days, plays on international duty and we get battered 5-0. You think that the confidence would be knocked, but you can see that they really bought into what he did in the last week. And I was thinking about this, but it wouldn't shock me if, obviously, this wasn't intentional. We were going to win it out against Liverpool last week. But I think perhaps mentally Ranieri could have perhaps written off that Liverpool game to see what what sort of players he had available to him. And then he thought, all right, this week is when the real work starts. And I think that we really did see that. But as I say already, I think there's just a different feel, not necessarily in the fan base. It was just the limbs, by the way, yesterday were unbelievable. Absolutely.
What would you give out of 10?
It's a solid 9.5 because the thing is, right, we scored the equaliser from Kutska and somehow I end up like I don't even know where I was. Just my body was all over the place. I turned around, moving back up to my seat. I look over my shoulder and we've scored again, so I'm back in the same position again. So it was absolutely unbelievable. But
you know what, Sam? Just to jump in there, I was watching it at home. And I can confirm when the 4th goal went in, my top was off. I was sprinting around the garden waving it.
You know what? It was genuinely though. I don't want to compare it because I said this already, and completely different situations. But there are so many comparisons between yesterday and the Wolves game at Wembley. I could go on with the comparisons, and it did feel very similar to that. And it was just a real, I think, particularly when 1-0 down, I think there was a real sort of divide, and it wasn't toxic, so to speak. But I think over the last week, we've seen a lot of perhaps division with Watford fans over certain topics. But I think there was a real unity yesterday, and I think that's all down to Claudio Ranieri, and massive credit to him. But as I say, because as football fans, we want to try and not be fickle, even though it's the nature of football fans. But it's all about following up next week against Southampton, because for all we know, we lose and we're back to square one. So it's about as good as yesterday was, taking that confidence, taking what Ranieri learned and what the players learned out of the game, and going again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Halfway through the show, if you are watching this live, please do leave a like. Comment down below your thoughts. As always, in the live chat, we're going to put some comments on screen in just a moment, and subscribe to WD18. And make sure you follow Sam and Shayna on socials. Link is in the description below. Shayna, I wanted to focus on a few individuals. So we've talked about Josh King. We'll start with the positives, obviously, with the 5-2 win. One player that stood out for me actually yesterday, and I think he'd been poor from the Aston Villa game, was Juraj Kucka. Not just in his goal, but I felt that he was really tenacious in the midfield, and he was that ball winner we needed. Did you feel that he picked up his performance yesterday? That's how I saw it anyway. But did you feel that he had stepped up the performance from the previous weeks?
I don't. Listen, it's one of those things with Uri. It must be difficult to come down from the high of that first game at home. You know, when the dust has all settled down, the first home game is done. I'll be honest, he hasn't looked like reaching the heights of that first game. I think yesterday was an improvement. I don't think he was right bang up there just yet. I thought the Kucka I saw against Villa was just awe-inspiring, like Thor in the middle of like the pitch or something. You know, I thought, honestly, the one thing that kind of frustrates me with Kucka, right, is that last week I thought, and then the games after Villa up until possibly yesterday, he looked very ponderous on the ball. You know, I said at the Newcastle game when I did the reaction, you know, he's 34 according to records. He plays like a 64-year-old. You know, just lacks a whole lot of stuff. And when I was at Ellen Road a couple of weeks ago, I was up there with Sam. Kucka, my God. Oh, disaster all over. Every time the man got the ball. Oh, it was a clanger every time. Every time he got the ball, clang. Every time he dropped, it's just every single time. Has he got back to that Villa performance? Yeah. But for me, the jury's out. All right, he scored. It was a great header. 2-2. The fans are buzzing. You could hear them on Match of the Day. Starting there in front of the fans. Sexy man and all that. But look, I feel like he's got a little. Yeah, exactly that. I feel like I love the knee slides as well. Yeah, so
we absolutely butchered the pitch.
Dennis is one as well at the end.
There's a picture.
That's how you do it.
Wait, Shayna, what was that Dennis celebration? What was that?
Watch it. Watch it back again. Like what? He saw the camera, you know. He saw the camera.
Shane, if you have a look on my Twitter, I put a picture on it full time. I pinned it to my profile, but it's look at the bottom left corner of it on the pitch, and you just see knee slide after knee slide. Oh yeah. Unbelievable. I feel sorry for the groundsman at Everton having to sort that out this week.
Sam, we mentioned Kucka there. There was one. So there was a comment from Charlotte who said Kucka showed he's worthy of sticking with. Form has been really ordinary lately. When Kucka plays well, Watford plays well, which is a really good comment actually, because when he plays well, he can not dictate the midfield, but he can have such an influence. I think it's probably the best.
Yeah, I think the best way of saying that. I mean, I think the two games which are an example of that, I think, were Villa, and I thought he did well against Tottenham as well. Tottenham away, I thought he played really well. And we probably should have won that day, and I thought we did okay. But I think that is a very good point that. But the thing is, it's about whether he plays well, because when he doesn't play well, he is arguably the worst player on the pitch. Yeah. So it's
one player that I do want to touch on. Sorry, Shano. One player I do want to touch on, Sam, is Cucho. Now, I had a look into his stats, and as Brand Lecturer says here, Hernandez was quality as well, especially in that second half. He completed more take-ons, 6, than more than any other player on the pitch yesterday.
Yeah.
He looks so good going forward, looks so bright. And clearly Ranieri likes him because it's 2 games, it's 2 starts for him, and you can see why, because of that creativity he brings to the team. So, did you feel that he was one of the standouts yesterday?
Yeah, I did. I think there are still elements to his game that worries me. I think that, it's a lack of experience. I think sometimes he can take a shot too early or take a touch too many. But I think that there's this. The word I used for João Pedro last season was arrogance, and I think there's a certain arrogance to his game, which is really, really good because he's not afraid to take players on. I think there's a really picture I loved yesterday of him squaring up to Tom Davis. I think it was a brilliant picture of that, and he's kind of got that fiery spark that he's able to add to his game. And I think he shows some real discipline as well defensively, in terms of tracking back. And obviously, we spoke about him taking on men. I think I certainly like him on the left-hand side. I think he's a really good player to have on the counter-attack. He's really, really dangerous at times. And certainly he's a real asset to us this season if we can carry on using him correctly. I don't think Xisco fancied him. I think it's clear Ranieri does, as you say. So I think he's a central figure along with Josh King in this sort of new build that we've got.
Yeah, sure. Do you feel that's the front 3 to go with Shano from now on, or do you think João needs to be put in there? Because looking ahead to Southampton, Dennis isn't going to be available because of the 5 yellow cards. So that front 3, is it a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Good options for once for Watford.
It's a really tough one, that, because when the problem with keeping with the same kind of front 3 is the first thing I said when I saw the lineup is, where's João? He was one of our best players against Liverpool. Why is this guy not starting? What's going on, kind of thing. Is that the best front 3? Maybe. I'm not so sure. I feel like the game really changed when João actually came on. I feel like there was more. Things just seem so much better whenever he's on the pitch.
João's the way. João's got to start. Yeah,
the guy's just quality, isn't he? I mean, you can't. As Jacob has said about Danny Rose, and yes, it's already copyrighted on the channel, I get it, right? But, form is temporary, class is permanent, right? I mean, we are going to say that a lot about this Watford side last season. I know Jacob's taken this. He's done that. He's pulled out the Emmanuel Dennis. But, no, listen, it's one of those for me. Look, João, King, start. I think that would be my preferred front 3. I don't, King has now quite possibly picked up some huge form. Sarr, yeah, all right. He got subbed off yesterday. He's still fantastic on the right-hand side. A point that's kind of been missed in some of this. Great to see actually Ranieri come out in the week in this press conference and explain what he was trying to do with Sarr. Not a lot of managers kind of do that, but he was like, do you know what? I wanted him to play off the back of the Liverpool defenders, kind of use his pace to get him behind. It didn't work out. I switched him to the right-hand side second half, and he seems more confident and comfortable there. Fair enough. He tried something new. I'm not gonna berate him for doing that, because let's be honest, we needed something different, which just didn't kind of happen there. But look, I've actually forgotten the question, but never mind.
Actually, you know what, Shano? Just to chuck it over to you, do you think Ranieri's head can be turned on the system that we play based on the last 20 minutes, it being a 4-4-2? And how effective we were going forward in that system? Or do you feel that he will continue with the 4-3-3 that he opted with at the start of the game going forward?
I think that's the beauty of having someone like Ranieri as our manager. I mean, we didn't know what the team was going to be against Liverpool. I didn't really know what the team was going to be on Saturday, if I'm honest with you. It's such a tough situation. I know a lot of fans that don't like the 4-4-2. I know I was kind of thinking about that at the start of the season, when we did have Troy in the squad and everything, could him and King maybe link up? I remember you kind of mentioned it. Is that something we can maybe work on? Look, I think the actual point I remember now was about Cucho. Cucho is a prime example in the squad of someone who's benefited from a new manager. That new manager bounce has happened with Cucho. Didn't look great against Liverpool, but that's because he's hardly played in this squad. Give him a week with the manager. Give him more time with the manager, and look at the kind of performance he put in on Saturday. For me, it wouldn't surprise me if we were to go with a 4-4-2 against Southampton. Maybe you go King. Do you go King and Cucho up front? Maybe give Cucho that help. I thought Cucho at times looked a bit isolated against Liverpool. Just go with those two up front. Just stick João up front with King and switch Cucho to the left. That's the best thing about this team, apart from actually Sarr. The central role on the left-hand side, that they can be quite fluid. You've also got Ken Semmer as well. He can always come on. I know that's maybe, sticking a pinned through like a balloon or something at this point. But he is still there. He's still an option. And you know what? As much as we kind of say stuff about Summer, he is the man who got us promoted on the left-hand side. He played a crucial part last season. He's not someone who's going to be he's not going to be just totally dismissed. I still think he's kind of quite a Ranieri-esque player, maybe in some respects. But listen, when you've got obviously no Dennis on Saturday, I think it's going to be interesting to see the kind of formation. I wouldn't be against the 4-4-2 personally, but it's whether or not Ranieri thinks we can actually get a result. I think it's harder to kind of change things out to like a 4-3-3 and all that sort of stuff. Really try and be conservative against Southampton. It's a big game for us. As Sam said, all well and good having a party about yesterday. Got to carry on that form on to next Saturday. And I don't really want to say, but I'm now going to say it because I've overcommitted myself in all of this.
He's lunged in.
Yesterday will mean very little if we're going to throw it all away against Southampton. If we put in another, not Liverpool-esque, but if we put in another poor, like a Newcastle or a Wolves-esque kind of performance there, it will feel like we'll be back at square one. Even though everyone will say that we're not, it will feel like that. So I wouldn't be against the 4-4-2. I wouldn't be against the 4-3-3. The beauty of this is it's Ranieri's roller coaster, and we've all just bought a ticket for it. So let's just see what happens.
Let's ride it out. Good stat from yesterday. Pardon me. Watford are the first team in Premier League history to win a game by 3 goals when trailing at 75 minutes. Sam, whilst that is an incredible stat and one that will be...
We are massive. We are huge.
We're enormous. We're absolutely gigantic.
We are the biggest team in world football, to be honest.
I've got to ask you, Sam, and this is the one we have to discuss it. The 2 goals we conceded, right? Incredible comeback from Watford, but we didn't give ourselves... I mean, look, Watford turned up in that last 25 minutes, but we didn't put ourselves in a great position after about 65 minutes because of the 2 goals we conceded, one from Tom Davies and one from Richarlison. An interesting comment from Hannah here. Still worried about the defence. Seems like we have to outscore teams to win. And although that's entertaining, it's really not sustainable. What do you make of that? And are you someone who is still, the jury's out with the defence at the minute?
Yeah, what it worries me, we haven't kept a clean sheet yet this season. Have we? The cup doesn't count, but in the Premier League, we haven't kept a clean sheet yet this season, and that's really worrying because I think one thing that Ranieri is going to look to do, particularly this week, because I don't think he was fully happy with the performance yesterday from what he was saying. I think he said there's a lot to improve on. We're not solid at all. We look like Everton still looked like they could score every time they went forward. I think that there were certain improvements. I thought Messina improved a lot yesterday, much better than normal. Jeremy Ngakia has to start from now on for me. I thought even Cathcart and Truce actually had better games. I thought they were better yesterday. Still not good enough. Ben Foster not good enough for the second goal. I'm not getting into it again, but get Daniel Batman back in goal as soon as possible. I think.
Did you read his comments of the week, Sam?
Sorry?
Did you read Batman's comments?
I did. I can completely understand it I can completely understand it because I think, all right, he was perhaps harshly dropped and then got injured. But when, it's not really double standards, but if Foster's making more mistakes than Bachmann and Bachmann gets dropped for even less than that, then he must be thinking, I'm a number 1 for Austria and got Watford promoted last season. What more can I do? And he's got, I think, 18 months left on his contract now. And I personally think Bachmann will leave in the summer anyway. I can't see him staying next season. I think he'll look to go abroad to someone like Ajax. I could see him going to. But I think there'll be an even bigger push for him to leave even in January if he doesn't get back into the team. So I think I am worried about the defence. I think the sooner we get Sear out about the better, get him confident. Nkulu looked all right yesterday, as I said. He looked pretty solid, even though the game was done already. But it's just small things again. I thought the defending was woeful for the first goal, absolutely abysmal. That's where I was worried about Kutska and Sissoko. I think they got through the midfield way too easily. And the ball in, Michael Keane had too much to get the ball in. Foster in no man's land. And was it Cathcart who lost Richarlison there in the middle?
That was a really weird one, Shano, because I when watching that goal live, I was trying to work out whether that was Cathcart losing his man, which I think it was, to be honest. But also Foster's positioning was as Sam said, in no man's land. How do you analyse that goal? Because it was a soft one to concede, as was the first, but certainly the second one was worse.
It was just Keystone Cops, to be honest with you, and I saw it back. Really, I mean, it was one of those. I think Cathcart almost stepped forward, and he kind of stepped forward. He looked behind him, and Richarlison was basically running off towards had gone off as part of his celebration already. Foster looking to come out to receive it. No, come on, man. Come on. It's just, obviously at the time, it was 1-1. Everton went 2-1 up. We weren't to forecast what was going to happen at the end of the game, but at that time I thought that's it. We throw it all away. Richarlison comes on.
I thought it looked like Foster had lost the. I thought it looked like he lost the flight of the ball.
Yeah, he had done. But again, he lost the flight of the ball. So what does that actually mean? It means he's made another mistake, right? Yeah. It's another mistake. It's on him. All right, Cathcart was dozy, as he tends to always be. It's encouraging to hear that Nkulu actually played quite well yesterday, because I wasn't expecting him to even be on the bench yesterday. So that guy must have been putting in sessions to be fit. As Ranieri said, in the build-up to the Liverpool game, he needs 3 weeks. It's been way less than 3 weeks. It's been about a week. And the man has literally he's literally pitched up with his bib on the bench to be like, no, do you know what? I'm here. I'm ready. I'm like, okay, well, incredible the fact that he's managed to turn that round. Very kind of optimistic, but if Nkulu, the pre-game checks for Southampton, he's got I don't know what he's got to do. If he's fit to be on the bench, I would actually start him against Southampton. There's something I'm very uneasy about Craig Cathcart at the back. Whilst I'm willing to admit that Troost-Ekonga's look better in games, whilst I'm happy to see Messina's look better in yesterday, it was a little bit of a, obviously Danny Rose has had a good season for us. He was outclassed by Mo Salah. I mean, who isn't going to be at this moment in time. But it was a bit of a surprise, and obviously see Danny Rose start. Obviously, he was injured and everything. And
do we know what the injury is for Danny Rose?
I don't actually know.
Well, I've got a feeling.
A knock.
From Adam Leventhal, he said that he picked up a knock in training, but I'd imagine it would have been. It's not
I think I don't want to speculate here, and obviously I think Danny Rose has been brilliant, but I think Adam, if you listen to From the Rookery End on, I think it was Thursday's episode, Adam Leventhal mentioned something like this. It wouldn't have shocked me if they just took him out of the limelight for a week. Just took him out of there after torrid time last week. He's a player who's coming back to full fitness still. He's a player who's been on a difficult journey in the last couple of years, and I don't think he probably would have had the best couple of days last week after his performance. So it wouldn't have shocked me if perhaps, I'm not saying he wasn't injured, but if they perhaps just took him out, gave him a week off and just said, relax, like you had a good season, just take a chilled week and you'll be back in next week. But
Sam, on the discussion of fullbacks, Ngakia and Messina. Now, Messina was a bold call because I thought he was really poor against Liverpool.
Yeah.
Granted, he was out of position, but he was poor. Ngakia, I thought, was really good when he came on against Liverpool and really good yesterday in terms of Anthony Gordon was in his back pocket when he got home. I mean, he would have emptied his back pocket and gone, look, phone kick Anthony Gordon. Like, Ngakia was phenomenal, I thought. I thought he was really good at the right back. I just like... I think, I'll be honest, I think he's my starting right back now, Sam.
100%. I think Kiko Femini was brilliant in the Championship, but I think in many ways it papered over the cracks that he's not a very good Premier League defender. I think we could see that the year we got relegated, and we've seen that at certain points this season. I think last season he was one of our players of the season. Something taking away from that, but I think it papered over those cracks. And I think it become very apparent again. And Jeremy Ngakia, all right. Going forward, there's still massive improvements. Even though I did think he was much better yesterday going forward. I think defensively he's just solid. We'll say it again, we say it every week. Jacob's comparison, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I mean, not the Wan-Bissaka today, but Wan-Bissaka when he's actually playing well reminds me of Jeremy Ngakia. Or Ngakia reminds me of Wan-Bissaka, I should say. So it's Wan-Bissaka is close to Jeremy Ngakia on his wall. So
doesn't he, Sam? Because he's waited a long time. You could tell Ivic fancied him, and then Ivic moved on. Xisco came in. He went for the more experienced players. That's what he was going to do. The tried and tested formula. But Ngakia, every time I've seen him play, whether it's this season or last season, he's put in a shift and he's been really good defensively. Maybe he doesn't offer that sort of flamboyant Kiko Femini going forward style, but at the back, he's so solid that it's very unlikely that a player's going to get past him, and they have to be really on form because, as you said, the way he can read the game with his tackles, particularly, I've been really impressed with them.
As I say, I think defensive stability is what we need to now base our game off. I think even after yesterday, I don't think we're not going to score 5 every week. We probably won't score 5 again this season in a game. But I think people, I mean, I just see a comment here at Kieran that Femini offers so much more defensively. When we need a goal, he always pops up. I don't think there's any harm in starting Jeremy Ngakia every week now and, keeping it solid. And if we do need a goal, we can switch them over. I think he's shown in the last few games, Ranieri, the last 2, that he's not scared to change the fullbacks over. So it wouldn't shock me if that's what we see from now on. But yeah, I think Jeremy Ngakia definitely starts. And massive shout out to Adam Messina, because I wasn't the only Watford fan who saw his name yesterday on the team sheet and went, here we go again. But he turned up yesterday. He was brilliant, particularly going forward as well. Showed a real intelligence and a really good relationship with Cucho. So really happy for Messina. I think he needed that more than anything else, and hopefully he keeps it up now.
Yeah, Matt in the comments, Ngakia played really well yesterday. She was strong, was willing to push forward if he could. Brown Electron said he doesn't cross like Kiko, but solid player who will give you his all. I think that's a guarantee, a bare minimum from Ngakia. He'll always give you 100% down the right-hand side. And another comment from Massimo, Ngakia has a good passing range over the top as well, put a couple of nice balls into the box yesterday. Look, I think we've gone through individuals. We've gone through Claudio Ranieri. Shane, let's look at the bigger picture in terms of this Watford win. We're on the back of course, this win, but previously the 5-0 defeat to Liverpool, which, as the weeks are going by, when Norwich are getting pumped by Chelsea 7-0, Man United are losing 5-0 to Liverpool, Atletico concede 3 to Liverpool. It's not looking as bad as it did at the time, and it hurt at the time because you don't want to see five goals being conceded at Vicarage Road in front of you, the Rookery. But it felt like, it might be too early to say, but it felt like that comeback will not only give us as Watford fans hope, but Watford players hope that this could potentially be a turning point in our season. But as you mentioned, how significant do you feel this win is in the grand scheme of the next few games for Watford? Because we have Southampton next, which is a winnable game. You then look after that and you look, we've got the likes of Arsenal away, Man United at home, which is, looking like, again, we could potentially try and get a point. Leicester City away. So looking at the next few games, I mean, it's a win that we just had to get, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Look, it was. And look, there's no shame in losing 5-0 to Liverpool. They're an outstanding team and who possess, I think, one of, if not one of the best players in the world right now. And he gave us an absolute torrid time, didn't he, last weekend? It wasn't the 5-0 that I was angry with. All right, I expected Liverpool, even though I'm, trying to be as optimistic as possible post-pandemic, in the new normal that we now live in and everything. But it wasn't the result. It was just how our performance last Saturday was just dreadful. And honestly, that was what really annoyed me more than anything else. You can see there's no shame in losing to Liverpool. Absolutely none at all. It's the way in which you lose. It's that desire. It's that passion. It's the spirit that we expect from the players when they put on the yellow shirt, and they just didn't show any of that, frankly. Yesterday was a huge win for us. Never won at Goodison Park. Upset the form book massively, I think, in some respects. I think a lot of other fans are starting to wake up and think, you know what? Dilly ding, dilly dong. Claudio Ranieri's back in the Premier League. I saw a few neutral fans that I follow on Twitter actually stunned by Watford's second half comeback, thinking, whoa, this is, all right, 2-1 down, 5-2 winners. And he's only done this in what? I don't know, a full week. A proper week. He only had a couple of days before the Liverpool game. I think that's just been really honest. Big game, as I say, next Saturday. We have to build on what we saw yesterday. Southampton, I think they played all right yesterday. I know it finished 2-1. They probably even should have won yesterday. I think Redmond missed a big chance for them. In like the overall grand kind of like scheme of things, but thing after Southampton. You've got Arsenal. That's always a really interesting one for me because we go to the Emirates. I always think we play quite well there, but we never actually get a result. I feel like we missed a lot of chances. Arsenal's a game we could potentially get something from. If it's the Arsenal side that turned up against Palace, we've got a chance. If it's the one that turned up against Aston Villa, we need to kind of be on our game, really. There are two sides to this Arsenal side this season, really. United, it depends whether or not Ollie's still at the wheel or not. If he is, then yes, happily we'll take something from that because they don't look like, the complete package yet. But they've got players in that side that are going to hurt you. United are United, and you know, all right, it's a poor game from them today, but it's not like well, it might feel like to them it's the end of their season, but they've got players in there that could easily turn up and destroy us. Frankly, you know, we've just got to be able to do one manager.
Another new manager by then, I think, as
possibly,
well.
Yeah, possibly, and I hope they kind of don't, because although we are playing them after the international break, aren't we? So, Watford fans know about the international break. I'm just saying, United fans. So you know, it's one of those. But...
Watford international breaks.
And do you know what? It is one of those things. And it's nice to actually. I feel like a win next week, everything will settle down. I feel calm now. A win next Saturday, Oasis, and there'll be less pressure. I don't think there's too much pressure on him going into the Arsenal game, but wins breed confidence. And I feel like a week on the training ground with Ranieri, players are now singing off the same hymn sheet. Josh King is now on the same hymn sheet as Emmanuel Dennis. Emmanuel Dennis is on the same hymn sheet as João Pedro. It looked a lot more put together yesterday. All right, we were 2-1 down, and I could come back to the standard of which we'll probably never ever see again. I will be very lucky if we did, and the standard that we're probably not going to score 5 goals again this season, even though I'd absolutely love to be there if we do. But yeah, it'll only be great, it'll only be fantastic if we're able to build upon it. And I've said that so many times throughout the years on this channel. All well and good, have a party now, have a beer or two, but then we get straight back to it Monday morning, Monday afternoon, whenever they go back into training again. Work on Southampton, nail Southampton. How do they play? What are we going to do to disrupt them? They're a side, again, it's taken them a while to get their first win as well. They're not exactly flowing with confidence either. I've seen a few Southampton fans who are not really sure if Ralph Hasenhüttl is the man anymore. You know, they stuck by him in a very tough period. I think it was last season or the season before. I feel like next Saturday, big game. It was going to be a big game anyway, but they look like a side who might be towards the bottom of the table. It's a big chance for us next week. Go out there, put in a great performance, get the Rookery off their feet, because we need to be off our feet. We've not been swept off our feet in ages. And come out and give us a great performance. And that's all we can hope for. You know, you play with passion, you play with determination. You look like you actually, you know, you have some balls about you, you have some substance about you. Go out there and play for the yellow shirt and play for the fans. That's all I'll ever ask from you.
Nick in the comments pretty much sums it up. It wasn't the fact we conceded 5 goals to Liverpool. It was the man of the defeat. It was powder puff. Yesterday, much more like it. Players looked up for it. Sam, final words just on yesterday. I guess it was a game which showed our huge strengths and huge weaknesses at both ends of the pitch. But do you feel confident that we could start to build an identity under Claudio? Were there signs there that you felt encouragement that he can build a style of play going forward? It's early days, of course, but that felt like the Watford way that we know, which is aggressive, on the front foot, not always possession based. They're not always playing tiki-taka, sometimes having to go long from goal kicks. But it was a Watford performance that we know, particularly going forward. So do you feel, as a fan, that we're starting to potentially build an identity under Claudio?
It's difficult to say after. Let's ignore the Liverpool game now. I think we can all just bad day. I mean, it was pretty bad, awful day at the office, but it was. We're not going to judge Claudio Ranieri on that. If it's anything to go by yesterday, yes, I am feeling more confident, and I am. I'm gutted. I'm missing Southampton next week, but I am more confident for that now than I would have been if you asked me before kickoff yesterday. He seems to really have a thorough knowledge of different teams. We saw that in his time at Leicester, Leicester at Fulham, but different situation there. But we saw much more like it yesterday from Ranieri and from the players. He was able to get the players up for it. I think, as Shane said, they were all playing for the shirt. And I think before an identity or a style of play comes that effort, determination, desire, giving 110%. And I think that's the main takeaway from yesterday, that if we can, shore up at the back and continue giving 110%, I think we'll be completely fine this season.
Great stuff, lads. Really enjoyed it. Watford, 5 goals away from home. What a week it's been. I think the last week has pretty much encapsulated what it is like to be a Watford supporter. Huge lows, but huge highs like there were yesterday. Great stuff from Sam and Shano, as always. As Caroline says in the comments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and put on that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you're watching this back, make sure you do let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Sam, Shane, It's been an absolute pleasure. Everton 2, Watford 5. Up the Hornets. Come on, you odds.